Okay, that was oh shoot, I have the wrong screen on. That was a very strange introduction music that we had. Hey everybody, I'm Albie13. We have a very special episode for the podcast that we are doing today, and I would like to introduce the very special guest that we have with us today. I've been calling him. He goes by his old gamer tag. He goes by Apollo. What's up, Apollo?
Hey, hello,
Welcome.
all the watchers, all the viewers of Albie 13's channel. I'm glad to be a part of this podcast here. So we're gonna get into some interesting topics today. So a little bit about me. I've been gaming for almost 3 decades now. So, um, been not really studying a lot of the topics, that we're about to speak about, but I've always thought about them. Uh, been watching, different programs about them and made my own opinions about certain things. So we'll get into that. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. Hopefully, we do more podcasts, and you guys could learn a little bit more about me. But yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Yeah, that was good. I'm gonna turn my source down a little bit. Just a little bit about me. I'm about this podcast. Like, I we're gonna be talking about strange things. We're gonna be talking about unusual. We're gonna be talking about weird things. We're gonna be talking about conspiracy theories and the freaky aspects of life. So that's kind of like what we're gonna be talking about. And like, I'm just somebody who takes interest, likes to learn and listen and think about this stuff. So I guess that's just how I factor into this and why I think we wanted to do this. Apollo and I are just kind of we're amused and we also think about this stuff because there are a lot of unknowns in the world. So you know history. You read about and you know about history, but I think we all know that there's a lot of stuff that's unsaid or mysterious. Sometimes there are mysterious circumstances, and sometimes things happen that we don't know a lot about because maybe there's no survivors or no good sources of information. So anyway, yeah. So I want to dive right in to our first subject, and
Let's do it.
this one in no particular order, but I just want to talk about. I want to talk about what's going on now because it's so in our forefront and our foreminds. Like what's going on with the antibody testing that we were talking about for CV because
Um, I, kn- I
uh,
I know it's a fairly new thing that's happening. The method I don't really know too much about it. All I know is that there's a finger prick involved, and they test your blood.
yes,
Um,
you're
but
exactly
yeah,
right. You're very knowledgeable on that because that's exactly right. And then I've heard a lot of people say, "Hey, I want to know if I had it so that I can then maybe I'm immune to it or whatever, and I know that I had it. I want to know. Obviously, you want to know if you had a strong immune system and you had a light case and you weren't really affected by it. That would be a relief to know. But here's the thing: I think Apollo and I don't like. We don't want to give our blood, and that's one of those things, right?
yeah. I've always been wary about giving out my DNA. I mean, some of my family members do the ancestry thing. Where
Thank
you
you.
you send out your data, basically your biological data,
Yes,
out to some company just for them to pacify you into giving you some information about your family that you should know anyway.
I'm glad you
So,
said that because
so
I
yeah,
definitely
the,
believe that information that you give out. I mean, first of all, there's really no there's no doubt to it. It's actually, if you read the fine print or you read about how these companies handle your information, first and foremost, they're taking your DNA and they're basically putting you in a database. They're putting your information, they are cataloging you, and they're tracing you, right?
Right.
And this is not a secret. They actually put it in their contract that you agree to. You agree to it. You're giving up your privacy and your all your information. That is demographics. That is who you are, your gender, what you believe in, your religious beliefs, whatever, all of that stuff. What you're comprised of in terms of what genetically speaking, where's your family members, where are they from, and that kind of thing, right? The genetic code, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people don't mind, having their data out there, and maybe they don't want to be forgotten. I mean, that's obviously, maybe that's something that we think about subconsciously,
right.
and also people want answers. Maybe they don't know their parents. They want to figure out
Yes.
their lineage, things like that. So people who do that, I mean, yeah, their data's going to be there, but there's people like us who are a little skeptical about it, and I guess it's natural for us for us to be skeptical about it.
Yeah. And it is. I think it is natural, and I think you raised a good point that some people don't care about privacy, right? They're like, for example, here's a classic one. Well, if you don't do anything wrong, then you have nothing to hide, right?
Right.
Incredible, incredible. In America, you are, privacy is a big deal. A lot of people, more than half of the people out there, care about their privacy. So we would say the majority of people care about privacy. And I think that this is basically amounting to a scheme to collect people's information, and not just personal information, but you're literally collecting a person's DNA, which, if you watch all the sci-fi movies, they will take your DNA and they will create a clone. They'll put you in a computer. They have
who knows what's possible. There's a lot of land that can be exploited to create certain facilities that might be able to do that. I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi aspects in that, but
I think
who knows what humans could do. So it's possible.
From what I remember in science, like, they would take your blood and then they could say what the DNA, what they did was they mapped the human genome, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And so once they mapped the human genome, which, my God, that was so long ago, you have the programming data, or in other words, it was translated into a text string as to what makes up that DNA. So, I mean, we got a scientific yeah. So I don't know. Like, I do think where we are in technology, I don't think there's any hidden technology that humans made that can, like, take that information and do something really significant with it. But we know we're in the age of where they've already cloned animals. And
exactly,
I was having a conversation with a very intelligent gentleman, and he was saying that we were talking. I just came up for some reason. What about cloning humans? And we, obviously we know in America that has been banned, and they're not going to allow that. But I think I said something like, "Well, what about all the other countries? You have hundreds of countries out there, right? So you have some mad scientist who is not going to be
definitely
constrained."
Overseas.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. They don't have to abide by any permits, any human rights, kind of.
Right.
So yeah, things are going down overseas for sure. Even underground here in the U.S. I mean, we don't know anything about what's underneath us, so we might as well do stuff there. But yeah, it's definitely possible that something's brewing. We're able to clone, mammals,
Right.
So I mean, there's obviously steps to this whole thing. So we're stepping through each step. So eventually, I mean, it's gonna be commonplace where it's a clone's working at the supermarket. Many the same clone working at one supermarket chain. I
Yes.
mean, who knows? It'll be good. I mean, not good, but I mean, maybe these companies might like something like that. They don't have to pay people to work.
Let's not
So
forget where we are. They are cloning organs for people to replace an organ when the organ goes bad in the body. So don't
yeah,
don't
that,
tell me that if they can clone the organ, they're not going to be able to clone all the organs, and then they're not going to be able to clone the
I mean,
body.
yeah, that I mean, yeah, I mean, they're not gonna let people know that, but of course, that's probably already happened. It's probably happening already, and we don't know it. Like,
Yeah.
there's already clones out there, but yeah, I think for the
Right.
purpose of like people surviving, I mean, that'll be intense. Like, they take your DNA at birth, and let's
Right.
say they have a, I don't know, organ, ready for you whenever you need it.
Right.
Say you're in your 80s, and they match up, you know your timeline, whatever, from when you were a baby, and they just grow an extra organ for you. I
Exactly.
mean, that'll be taking a next step that would really change the world. And then they'll probably add technology to that, like
Yes.
add-ons. We want a new nose or something. We want eye receptors, things like that.
Yeah, I think they were trying to say that this is going to be marketed to the ultra elite and the extremely wealthy. Where I mean, this is not even public information. So if you're a private citizen, working, 9 to 5 or whatever, you work at a regular corporation, you don't really even know what companies are doing. If you think about it, when's the last time you heard about? Because I went to a meeting. A company was doing what they were doing was they were, how would you say it, when you're courting, I guess you're courting other companies, like
Uh-huh.
in dating, where you just kind of like, you bring them in and you kind of want to make a
Building
nice.
rapport.
Yeah,
Building
you're
rapport.
exactly, they're getting to know what your company is, what it's about. And what they showed, a fancy, production video, like a movie. And I'm like, wow, this is great. This is all happening behind quote unquote closed doors. And I got to, go into one of those closed doors, and it became an open door for me. But my whole point is that is happening. If you're just on the street, going to the market, having a regular job, you don't even realize what is being marketed to corporations and conglomerates, let alone the elites of the world, the
Mhm.
politicians, the mega wealthy.
Well, they'd probably use the same techniques that they do on kids, because people grow up, and now, I mean, they got into that position from being a child. So whatever these companies are doing to each other, they're enticing each other using their kind of like their childlike brains when you're attracted to certain things.
Let's not forget to mention the athletes who are at risk. They're putting their bodies at risk, but they have the millions and millions of dollars. Are they potentially clients?
I mean, I'm sure they have some kind of legal representation for that. Like, there's some clause or some page that their lawyer written. I mean, if they're smart, they'd have some kind of lawyer write up something like, if I break my leg when I'm, playing football for you, then I get so and so, or I should be, allowed some kind of medical treatment.
Right. That'd be wise.
But
Okay. Well, let's. What I want to talk about, since we were on the subject of the antibody testing, is there's a lot of people who say it came from a lab and it was a biological weapon. What are your thoughts on that?
then my only thoughts are, I mean, I could only talk about what I've been exposed to, and the only thing that I've been exposed to are, headlines, talking about, oh, it generated from a lab, and then I don't
Right.
really usually go further than that, because
Right.
I've reached a point in my life where if I watch too much of the news, then uh, I'm going to be directed towards a certain mind state, and I don't want that to be artificial. I want my mind state to be like from my mind, not from the TV. But it
Right.
sounds like it could be. I mean, it could be a weapon. I mean, we can't really do open warfare anymore because we have everybody's country's citizens are all over the place. So you don't know if you're killing your own citizens. You don't know who's where, you know? So you can't
Yes.
really do open warfare. So, I mean, if you really wanted to get something started, then might as well start with the health of your opponent, of your enemy. Get them unhealthy to where they won't be able to meet up or make plans against you.
Okay.
So it could be. I'm just saying it's definitely a possibility. If we could do it, then other countries could do it to us. So
If you believe that this is a weapon, then you probably have to come to the conclusion that the weapon has backfired and the country that originated it is taking casualties because everybody is cannot control the situation. The
hmm
cases and lives lost are ridiculously high.
right.
So
I mean, if this was something that was orchestrated, then I think in the talks of them orchestrating this, there would probably be mentions of people, collateral, as people losing their lives. There's all this talk about controlling the population and this and
right,
that.
like lowering the population amount.
Yeah. Some of the more maniacal, you know, orchestrators might love that idea.
Yeah.
They want there to be less cars on the street and less loans to give out.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. Um, I think the idea was that oh, this is some kind of weapon. Well, it's like if this is a weapon, then it's a poor choice for a weapon. It's because why would you want something that is like this that it spreads too much too easily and it doesn't have what every evil movie has, which is an antidote. If you're going to release some nasty thing that killed people, you want to make for damn sure that you have an antidote to take so you and your people are immune to this, right?
Well, I mean, think of this like Batman. You say he throws down his smoke bomb or something, and it like lights the whole area with smoke, and then he like gets out.
Right.
Well, what if that happened, and all of a sudden they something like you said backfired, and they couldn't get out of the room full of smoke. And now Batman's all coughing, just like the henchmen that are all around trying to get him are coughing. So could be something like that. It was accidental. Maybe it was, it's supposed to be something that was controlled and then
Okay.
released at a certain time. But
Okay.
I mean, I don't. I mean, that's just my,
Okay.
crazy
So
mind talking.
the theory might be that this was a weapon, but it was an accidental leak into the public. Is that what the idea is?
That's an avenue that is possible, but
It's definitely
yeah, it's
possible.
it's definitely possible. Yeah, yeah.
Now, as I think you're referring to the headlines, probably the same shit that I saw. Specific lab in China. Things came out of it. Things like that. Like
Right.
what was happening in that lab. Da 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 da. Those are the kind of headlines you saw, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I saw too, which I didn't really take too much because again, like,
I
it
mean,
doesn't really add
multiply
up.
that by millions of people, millions of Americans, and then all of a sudden it becomes truth. So
And
who knows?
I was asked that. Oh, did this come out of a lab? And I was like, at this point, it doesn't matter because in terms of the U.S., American people have to deal with this problem from the government. The government has to deal with it, and the citizens have to deal with it as best they can. So, because we're just talking about a something that is contagious. So we're not even like there's the origin doesn't really matter that much in my opinion. But you know,
Uh-huh.
I think there was somebody saying, "Oh, we have to know where it came from. We have to know where it came from." And it's like, what is it gonna do to know that this this thing came from like a monkey, or it came from a bat, or it came from us?
It'll
Aside from the whole wet market thing, they were saying close the wet markets down. They shouldn't exist.
it'll probably narrow down the type of like whatever, if there has to be an antidote, then it'll probably narrow down what kind of products that were going through that area. And then,
Okay.
I mean, if I was thinking like a scientist, I would want to find out the point to
Okay.
where I could do more research from that area. Because if I didn't know anything, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, I'm not gonna pretend to be a real doctor, scientist, expert on this, but I do
Yeah.
know a fair amount of stuff. And I believe it was a reputable source. Now, obviously, you can go on the internet and dive into this. There's a reputable source that said that some of the some of the coding of this is was from bats, and they
Uh-huh.
pretty much narrowed it down and said that they believed that the origin animal was from bats. And I think that it's got a little bit drowned out, but most of the people believe that because of that. And I'm also one of the believers that that was the, what they call it, whatever, what's the transmission animal or something like that. I don't know what they
Uh-huh.
call it.
The point of transmission,
Point of
or I don't know.
transmission from animal to human. Boom.
Yeah.
So there you
Um.
go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know the situation that might have happened. Whether it was, you're talking about it being eaten, like the bat was eaten.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because the wet
Okay.
that's the tie-in with the wet market, which is where the
Right.
bats were being sold at market. And in the Chinese culture, they are known to eat everything. If it walks, flies, or swims, they eat it, as they say. So
Okay.
bats fly, and they eat them. But we know that we shouldn't eat rats, right? And we know
Oh
that we
yeah.
shouldn't eat bats. Now we know we shouldn't eat bats for double sure, but we already kind of
Oh.
knew that we
Oh,
shouldn't eat
definitely.
bats.
Yeah. 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 The chicken joint, down the street is definitely not gonna have rat tenders for $4.99, because we kind of know better than that.
Yes,
Because it's disgust that would be disgusting to us.
it would
But
be, but
so,
it's not just about that. We're talking about preventing issues. For example, did you know that you're not supposed to eat brains?
any brains,
Yes, any brains,
like, so fish brains.
even fish
Not
brains.
supposed to. Oh well,
You
I
can
did
eat
not know that.
you can eat fish brains. That's not really the a complex animal is where where it really counts. You know,
Talking about like cow brains.
cow brain, monkey brain, human brain. Don't eat brains. That's because there are you know there are specific things that attack the brains, and you could get that if you eat, which was the whole thing about mad cow. Remember mad cow disease?
Oh yeah, it
So
was a
you
big
you you,
scare.
you
Yeah.
won't get mad cow. Mad cow transferred to humans basically, but you wouldn't get that only if you eat brains. Which the whole thing was that they were feeding the brains to the cows, and the cows got it, and then we ate the cows. So there was a line there.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, we weren't eating brains, but the cows that we ate were eating brains. So
Wow.
we got to be careful with that. Don't feed cows bats, and don't feed them
Right.
rats, and don't feed them brains.
Them brains. Yeah.
Okay. Um, all right, I want to move on to the next topic of discussion, and that is 5G, mobile phone,
Oh,
cell
okay.
phone emissions, and wireless technology.
Uh huh.
Um,
Um.
there's been an alarm sounded by hundreds of scientists, people who really know what the hell they're talking about, saying that 5G is causing they believe it's causing health issues in people and humans.
Right. I heard something called cell decay happening. Now that sounds pretty serious. Cell decay is something that I heard
That doesn't
that's
sound
going
good.
on. Yeah.
I don't want my cells to decay. How about you?
Right. Oh, definitely not. I don't understand why we have to keep boosting. I mean, why we have to keep boosting, the strength of, the networks, things like that. I mean, yeah, we want to go faster. It'll streamline everything. But yeah, we have to be careful with our limits as human beings because we're only flesh and blood, So certain things we know not to be around, like microwaves, like
Yes.
not to stand in front of the microwave because
Yes.
as a human being you can't do that. You can't do that for days on end. You're sitting in front of your microwave and you live there in front of your microwave. You're gonna have some issues. So I think same
Well
thing's
said.
going on. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If you took a person from the medieval times and you put them in front of the microwave and you ran the microwave and they got food out of it and they're like, "Oh, what a wonderful magic that's doing. It's making food hot." Do you think they would have any inkling that was causing a radiation issue?
No. I mean,
not at all.
they would just be obsessed with the novelty of it and the convenience.
Exactly.
They don't have to go out
Think
and
about
chop any wood.
Right.
They don't have to go stoke a fire. They could just somehow have this magic box
Right.
make their supper, So,
Right.
yeah, they'd be obsessed with it.
So think about like the how naive the people are now, and with the modern education systems, modern education that they've gone through and received, they have these
I think
magical phones that are wireless, and they can
Yeah, we're
go
not
on the
really
internet.
taught it. We were just told as kids, here, use your cell phone. This
Right.
is how you're gonna be safe.
Right.
Call us whenever you need help. And we don't really know the technology that goes behind that. We just know that it's a device that helps us communicate with each other and the world. So,
Right.
yeah,
People
we
know
don't
that
question
X-rays are
it.
bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this new technology out. It's called 5G. It's supposed to be, I mean, the whole side of it, the companies are doing the marketing. They realize this is a selling point for their network and for their phones, because the network, they want to be the first one and they want to be the biggest one, giving you 5G anywhere, everywhere. You got to get whatever that company is. I don't want to even use specific company names at all, but you know who's trying to push it and who isn't.
Right. It's a spirit of competition.
There's a spirit of competition.
They just want to have the best network and do the best things, have the most money.
Do you remember Marlboro cigarette companies?
Marlboro, yeah.
What was that company? Morgan, or what was it? JP Morgan? No. What
Was it JP? That was
No,
JP
no,
Morgan.
no. What was the company that did cigarettes that they sued?
I don't know. I don't know about that one. Marlboro.
Excuse me for a second while I pull this information. There was a tobacco company, Phillip Morris. Do you know Phillip Morris?
Mm-mm.
You should know Phillip Morris. Phillip Morris was basically, I think it was a collection of tobacco companies, or the biggest tobacco company, and they were the one that said that, well, cigarettes, they knew that cigarettes were bad and they caused cancer. So they got taken to court. It was exposed that Phillip Morris knew cigarettes gave you cancer, but they didn't protect their customers. In fact, I think they lied about it, basically saying it doesn't give cancer. But in other words, they didn't tell their customers that, oh, this, by the way, this product gives you cancer, when they knew that it did, which is wrongdoing. It's called, improper action, right?
That'll hurt the bottom line. What they wanted to do is have the bottom line for that quarter.
There you go.
So they wouldn't have said anything. But of
So
course, they'd have their researchers on it, and they'd probably confirm it, and then they'd probably just I don't know, have to deal with it somehow. But yeah, I think they
exactly.
would say anything at the time to you know cover themselves.
So it hurts the bottom line. So if the cell phone company found out that 5G were to be bad for the customers, we know that it would hurt their bottom line if they would have to go and make a statement and reverse course on 5G, right?
Yeah, it'll shake things up.
We know it's not in their best interest.
Yeah, definitely it will be an inconvenience
An
to their
inconvenient
profit
truth
margin.
to their profit margin, yes. So we can't expect the companies to speak up. The only thing we can do is arm ourselves with information.
Right. I mean, there would just have to be experiments done. That's the only way. I mean, we're a society to where we need to see it to believe it.
Yes.
We're not gonna just take people's words for it. We need to see it. It has to be like seen by many people. There has to be memes about it. It has to be a common thing with experiments. So I guess if somebody's brave enough, they're gonna have to somehow. I mean, I can't say I'm an expert either, but maybe I could convince an experimenter to do this. But I mean,
You're
I don't even
saying
know what they would have to be.
testing 5G on people. Is that what you're talking about?
I mean,
Are you aware that I believe this report is true and accurate. I could be wrong. If you prove it, if you could find information to prove this wrong, I would like to know the truth of the matter. But according to the report that I read, they installed 5G antennas in fire departments as preliminary testing and rolling it out. And the fire departments didn't really have a say in it. It was just installed without their input, their desire, or their ability to veto it. So
wow.
the reports came after the installation that
Do you
the
know where this was? Is this in the U.S.?
this is in the United States, happening right underneath our noses.
In like 10 states and 5 states? Where is this?
Stand by.
Okay.
Pulling the
Yeah, because that would be
information up.
interesting. If this happened everywhere, that's a big deal. Maybe in the major like metropolitan areas, like where there's lots of people and phones, then maybe it happened, in those areas. But that's crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's a little disturbing. Uh, New to me, but so yeah. I mean, the phone companies are advertising 5G, so they have to have the connections or whatever towers that they need to do it, or it could just be 4G, but with the name is 5G when you pull it up on your phone. Maybe it's the illusion of speed. That's what it's gonna be. Maybe it's nothing, but I mean, I'd like it to be nothing, but
So
may not be.
I looked this up. This is well after this original news was put out there, about the firefighters in Sacramento, San Francisco, reporting to have memory problems and confusion. According to this site, which is probably accurate, this is about RF radiation from 2001 from 2G towers and not specifically 5G cell phone towers. So this is kind of busted. Somebody put this together and they tried to fool people with it. So that was one of the reports that sounded convincing, but it wasn't real. So I brought it up, so I wanted to shut it down. Now here would be a counterpoint to what I said. What the scientists and the experts were saying, they were actually saying we need to conduct more tests. They weren't saying that it causes problems or damage to the human body. They were just saying this is a new technology and we need to test it further. But as you know, The cell phone companies are pushing this out. They already have released. They have already launched 5G. They were installing the towers. They were installing it in communities as well. And there was health concern, and I think there's still a health concern. I have heard experts. Now let me tell you, like, I want to kind of just finish this up and give the counterpoint. The experts claim that the 5G signal cannot penetrate the human skin because of where it sits in the range and the amount of power that it puts out, I guess. The type of signal cannot penetrate the human skin. So I was like, okay, I can't really argue with that science.
Well, what parts of your skin?
That I was kind of
layers. Can it go through your eyelids?
That's exactly what I was getting to. Does it going through your eyes? They didn't answer that question because they haven't done enough research. They haven't tested it enough. It's a bunch of bullshit. All that is just a statement to say that it's like trying to make it more legitimate instead of asking the question and actually testing it thoroughly. It's like arguing for legitimacy of it. So they're in the pocket of, or they just don't have the full picture. You know, they may not have.
They can't have the full picture because they're not gonna. I mean, we can't test it. They're not gonna test it on human beings. I mean, they're not gonna make a public knowledge that they're testing it on people. So they're gonna calm everybody down by saying, you know, it's not gonna hurt people, or they don't have enough information because they generally don't. So I think they just need to do more tests. But I mean, the thing that you brought up about the 2G towers, I mean, if they were feeling that way in 2G, I mean, I don't even know what's going on now. I mean, I don't feel bad right now. I mean,
so you gotta understand.
My Wi-Fi has 5G at the end of it. It just
but
says 5G.
Let me clarify that because I'm in the tech sector. The 5G that your wireless does is it's like a 2.4 gigahertz or something. That's like the equivalent of like a wireless phone in the house, like a cordless phone as we used to call them.
It's a wannabe 5G.
It's not 5G. It's not the equivalent of 5G in cell phones. The 5G in cell phones is a new technology, and it has nothing to do with 5G and Wi-Fi, so there's nothing to worry about in terms of health or anything, not beyond the normal concerns with wireless in terms of the routers that we have at home and all that. That 5G is basically just a higher speed, stronger signal. That's it.
So you're saying if your phone is off Wi-Fi and it's on, the cell network, and the cell network happens to be 5G, then that's when the 5G stream is coming?
So you have to realize that because your antenna, that is your phone, just because you're not receiving 5G, in other words, it's not because if you don't have a cell phone that's capable of it, or your wireless is not, your antenna is not turned on, that doesn't mean 5G signal is still not reaching you. Signals are like a radio signal. We have radio waves going through our body at any given moment, all the time.
Yeah.
Same thing with 5G, except that 5G does not travel far, and it doesn't penetrate through things well. So that's why 5G has to have a lot. If you look into 5G, you're going to realize they're installing hundreds of antennas. And they're installing them right on the streets and in houses and anywhere, because you need to have that many in order to give you coverage for 5G, which raises the concern that they're putting all these antennas everywhere in the community. So the concern is what you're saying is it comes down to that you could opt out, just like I have a 4G phone. I'm still gonna get blasted with 5G.
Yeah.
I could not have a cell phone. I'm still getting blasted with 3G, 4G, and 5G and radio waves. It's all hitting you anyway. So the whole point is, what are you putting out there? What are you installing, and what do humans have to deal with? In terms of that.
It might just be where we just have to adapt to it, and then as the generations go on, 5G is not gonna hurt them, as opposed to generations before. Maybe like you said with the medieval thing, maybe 5G would just straight out, flat out kill them overnight, But as we go on exposed to this stuff, things we can't see, maybe our DNA is, I don't know, as we live on, just adapting to it. I mean, that's the bright side of everything, but the darker side is people are dying, might be affected by this and get headaches from it and be unbearable. But in the whole grand scheme of things, it might not be about an individual people at a certain time. It's just how it's going to be. The world needs to go on, and we need to have it go on faster than ever. And if it's not faster than ever, then we're not making enough money.
Okay, so let's move on to the next subject. I want to talk about, because you were talking about this, listening to the news, and I don't want to watch the news a lot, and that leads into the programming, the systems of control that are in society, and the programming specifically, how our brain is being programmed by the media and things that are out there, and what are we being either consciously or subconsciously trained with these messages that we actually just choose to.
So how is it happening is your question?
So the question really is like what is going on in the world today with programming, because as you used to know, everybody used to sit behind the TV a long time ago.
Yeah, everybody used to sit behind the radio. Remember,
the radio was the original
around the radio,
but
that was with your ears. So
yes.
Now we've opened up this whole new avenue with vision.
Yes.
So it's happening through TV, through since the advent of TV and advertising. Companies have made it a science to convince people to buy something. So if you take that energy and you turn it into something political or something,
yes.
in that regards, then it's easily doable through networks or entertainment, commercials, all this stuff, and now online stuff, memes. That's a big thing with the young people, because if you're a company, you want to persuade somebody, you're gonna do it through the meme culture and do all that to where it's being seen every day. You can't escape it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm putting that in my notes. I want to ask you, specifically the internet, because the TV's been well documented, although TV has shifted. I want to raise the awareness of the podcast audience, because you and I already know this. There was a video, and I know that even when millions of people watch a video, you just have to think about the hundreds of millions of people in the world, right? What a small percentage of people that even knew about that video, even when it goes, well, it spreads widespread. So there was that famous video where everybody in the news said the same exact thing, and it was freaky.
Oh yeah.
Okay. You know the video I'm talking about. Essentially, they had there were like all of these different, they look and they sound and they kind of almost claim to be independent and local news.
Yeah, but they're all saying that same thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They all said
insane.
the exact same message, because the message came down from the basically it's the media conglomerate.
Probably be hidden in plain sight type of thing. Like it's probably a big joke. It's probably a big joke. Probably wasn't something that like was trying to fit an agenda. It's probably like, I think it was a joke. All the higher ups, I don't even know. But I know what the video you're talking about, and it's strange seeing, like, it's kind of like like a two-faced type of thing, like double, like, it's happening, but haha, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes. That's interesting that you said it's kind of like a joke. So if you're in on it, then you really have a great laugh, don't you? Really, it's a sick, twisted thing on the public.
Yeah. I mean, if you make it as outlandish as that, then I mean, I guess you can keep going because nobody's gonna question you on it. I mean, if that video exists, it means that they can keep going, and now these networks could do the same thing, but saying a different type of narrative.
So I
But
wanna name names in this case. I believe one of the two largest media companies in I guess in the United States, but probably the world, Fox Broadcasting Company. Um, they're one of
okay,
two, and I wanna name the other one, but if only I could.
and they're participating in this tragic comedy.
Yeah, they are. It's weird because the conglomerate is there for like any big company. It's just think of it as a mega company. They want profit and they don't want anything to stop the profit, right?
Yeah, it's probably a big pyramid scheme. There's probably a couple of companies on the top, and then it trickles down to this broadcasting network here, and they have the most influence there.
Well,
So
it's
it's
a pyramid
yeah.
pyramid of power, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I wanna kind of highlight um the I want to highlight like this article right here. You can look this up on the internet. It's free information, but only if you think to even look it up. Um, there are essentially six companies that own almost all of the media in the world. Um, I know that. I'm just trying to find the other name. Anyway,
So it's
sorry.
Fox
Fox
and
and there's
where
another
they
big company,
uh,
and
you
specifically
remember the
with the
colors?
news.
Remember the colors?
I can't remember right now, but at least I
Uh,
remembered Fox because that one is only because I been watching Fox News just because of it's just it's always out there, you turn it's always there. So not that I have any because they lean like Republican, right? And
okay.
it's anyway, as you know, the quality and in fact what news media stands for has changed. And you could even go as far as to say now I don't really watch mainstream media. I watch independent news now.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the shift.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like more along my lines. Like, say the radio, no, say the news is playing in the living room at my house. I'm not gonna sit down and watch it. But the more independent things I find online, independent, news outlets, I'll listen to that because they're not backed by so and so. They're not persuaded to give a certain narrative. But yeah, I agree that there's been a shift. I mean, if you're really trying to get the most information you can out of the internet, then yeah, a lot of us are doing that now. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the whole thing about that control is you got to realize that all the local news across the nation is being controlled by a couple of big companies. And
definitely.
just think about it as one company. One company controls all of the media. No matter if you go to a small city, on the other side of your state, or the city that you're in your state, it's controlled by the same media. There is no local news and other bigger news company. It's all one company. It doesn't matter if you tune into this one
Definitely.
or that
And
one.
yeah, there's gonna be a facade of local news, but all the local news have the same script. Like in that video, they all have the
Yes,
same script, and
they can.
sometimes it's scary to the T together. I
Yeah,
don't know who authorized that, but they
well,
probably messed up
yeah. I
that
don't
that
know.
came out.
I don't know
But
about.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know if they're even self conscious enough. I don't know if they care. I know that they operate independent, like as if it's like China. Companies can do whatever they want until Chinese communist uh, the government, if they decide to step in, they can take over the company, run it how they want.
Yeah.
They could take the information that the company owns. The company doesn't own it. The government owns it. It's only when the government orders you to do something. If the government doesn't order you, then you're autonomous. But so it's like there's no you're not they're not really independent. They're independent.
So yeah,
Yes.
I think the companies might, flash their, First Amendment rights. They're kind of say, oh, it's our First Amendment right to do this, even though it might not be genuine. Um, but yeah, but well, how far can you go? How far can you go with the information that you put out on your network? That's also something
Yeah.
that maybe the government can think about.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that.
Everything's being ratified. Everything's being ratified since the beginning of the nation. So I think something's gonna happen to where false information or certain information just has to be fact checked on the spot, or these networks have to be more closely monitored. Even though it sounds bad, but it's also good for the well-being of the people who want information, and they're vulnerable to their TVs because that's all they got is their TV and their their remote to tune into these channels.
So, gathering from what you're saying, it sounds like you believe that um, the media is controlling the masses. Is that accurate? Is
I
that
think
what you
there's
think?
certain I think yeah. I think there's certain branches of media that they want to direct us. They have a certain directive that has to happen at certain times, and it's been going that way since before we can probably but since before we probably know. It's probably before all TV, you know, all like when the printing press first came out, that's when it first started. The this directed kind of narrative. I mean, I'm not saying that I know what it is, but I'm saying that it exists. Like this type of activity exists.
So you don't necessarily know what they're trying to control people into thinking or how they're trying to program them.
I'd definitely be upset at myself if I didn't question some things about all that's going on.
So
Like future me would be upset at present me right now, basically. Yeah.
you don't have any theories as to what they're trying to how they're trying to control the masses.
I mean, there are some that I know of. I know of certain African American like comedians that they have this certain path to stardom, and sometimes if they don't fall in line, then they fall off, and they not as popular, and they go broke. And
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of it has to do with the demasculinization of the African American male, which is
right.
putting these comedians in wigs, putting them in
Right. I was just gonna
you
mention
know
that.
women's outfits,
Right. And do you
and then
think
it
that's
goes
being
to
done for purely racist reasons, or is there like a directive to keep? In other
I think
words,
in the
it's not
beginning it was
just
like
because.
that.
Uh
I
huh.
think it was in the beginning it was like that, but now that hip hop culture has kind of taken over, it's kind of a leeway into okay, now we can get everybody. Now we can get now we can get different race people into this. Now now it's like certain actors doing it, like even like white actors doing putting themselves in makeup and in wigs, things like that. So I don't know. I think it's evolving. I think it's something that evolves just like we do. And if they want to keep a finger on the pulse, then they're gonna do whatever they can to do it.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So, I want to just finish up this point by asking something that you were talking about earlier, which is like to what point, like how do the memes come into play on the systems of control and the programming? Because obviously, to me, it's almost like memes are programming for the younger minds the
Oh,
Generation
definitely.
Z, or the
Oh yeah,
Zoomers, as they call them.
yeah, yeah. The powers that be have to adapt to the minds of the youth. So right now they have to go along with the fads. So now the fad is the meme culture. So now they could easily direct this narrative anonymously now because of the meme culture. They could put out a meme and then it becomes a thing, or they could have an event happen to where now people are talking about it in memes. So I don't recall when meme became a word or meme became a culture,
I
but
remember
now it's a
when
thing.
meme
So
became a word because they were saying, "Do you pronounce it mimi or do you pronounce it meme?"
uh-huh.
So
Right.
that was asked so many times that I'm like, okay, this is the time when this is becoming a word. And
Uh-huh.
here, let's Google this. When was meme added to the dictionary? 1998. What a time to be alive at that time.
Hmm.
1998 was when meme became a word in the official sense. And so that's interesting that you said that they're adapting to that changing the basically what people are paying attention to, or
Oh yeah.
that's really well put.
Yeah, yeah, there's a predatory nature to
Yes,
this whole game, and
yes, the
they need
predators are
to
going
be
after the
able to see in the
Zoomers.
dark. Yeah, they have to be
Seeing
able
in
to
the
see
dark,
in the dark. And so
like
they adapted to
Chronicles
it.
of Riddick, or are we talking about
Better
like Sonar?
on crack. Articles of Riddick on crack.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Check, check. So do you think that the frog, that is like named after like the character that was Pepe Le Pew, is that part of a controlling meme?
Wait, Pepe Le Pew? Wait, say
No,
that again?
no, yeah, but it's the frog, the meme. That's the frog. You know
Oh,
what I'm talking
okay,
about.
the frog
I don't
guy.
want to
Okay, yeah.
say the frog guy. I don't want to say the. I don't want to put those words
The-
together for
Okay,
obvious
okay,
reasons.
okay. There is a certain meme that exists.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a series of them, isn't there?
It's definitely a series. People are pretty creative with it, but
Yeah, but are they
um,
creative, or is this part of the programming and they're being generated?
I think it's like an artist. You know how an artist becomes popular, like a certain artist becomes
Have
popular.
yes, yeah.
It's like say so and so is a new pop hit, and they want all the little girls to act like her. The same thing with the memes. Oh, this meme is hot right now.
Okay.
Let's have some of our creative team bubble up something and let's put it out there. But
Okay.
it has to be at the right time. Like everything is about timing and just getting it out there, spreading it like hot fire.
Okay. I like it, man. I like this conversation. I think we're doing great. No, strange, weird, freaky podcast would be complete without us talking about the extraterrestrial element.
Oh
Wouldn't you
man,
agree?
I do
How
agree with that.
how could we not? So
Indeed.
I was reminded of the Phoenix Lights recently,
Uh huh.
and I wanted to talk about the mysterious Phoenix Lights in the sky that people have reported seeing.
Right.
People have photographed. People have photographed in modern times.
Yeah. The Phoenix Lights. That was a crazy light light phenomena that happened in where was this? Obviously, it's Phoenix, Arizona.
They said
And
that you
yeah.
could be seen from different places, including Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, but it was only Arizona, right? It wasn't something bigger than
No,
you can
there's
see
other
it from anywhere.
places. There are other places. They said it was Nevada, Arizona, and Sonora, Mexico. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so they're actually in multiple places. Now you know the official story, right?
Yeah, those are the story was that these lights appeared in the sky and people were in, they didn't really understand what was happening, and then as all of these UFO cases go, it came down to it being something about testing, or something about there's always an excuse for it.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then
Right.
after the fact, I think it was the mayor or it was somebody in a political office that really made a stupid uh, skit or joke, something about it, and he kind of mocked people um, in a press interview, and he mocked them. But this is a big deal to some people. I don't want to really talk about all of it right now. I don't want to give it all away right now, but yeah, it's a interesting event in history.
Did you know that Fife Symington, the governor, was witness to the incident, and he called the object, quote, otherworldly, end quote.
Otherworldly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, if he said that, I mean, he probably, got in a little bit of trouble for saying that, or, maybe he didn't want his account to be leaked, but yeah, he had to turn around and do something, you know, outrageous in order to make light of the whole situation, which is what he did in a press conference.
So, for those that are not initiated, we're talking about spherical lights in the sky, typically seen in a V formation, lasting for somewhere around an hour and a half or so.
Yeah, but this wasn't just any V formation. It was something that was very large, and
Yes.
some people said they could hear vibrations, they could hear a hum coming from it. But that was just an account of a couple people. But yeah, it was something that was pretty large. If it was just one piece of equipment or some kind of travel apparatus, it was pretty large. Uh, but yeah.
So it has been it has been claimed that they've figured out what the Phoenix Lights are. And the latest answer, or one of the latest answer, is that jets were flying in a V formation or a triangle, and that's what you saw. Now, could it have been jets, or could it have been like maybe more secretive jet technology in the military? It's possible. So, in other words, like, are we maybe seeing things that they don't want to reveal to the public and is hidden because our military has it, but it's not
If
public information, or
Yeah,
nor is
if they
there.
wanted it, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but if they wanted it to be secret, there would be no lights. They don't need lights. Why would there need to be lights on? And
So
whoever had those headlights on made a big mistake.
I'm
They
gonna
probably
give
have no job. But
I'm gonna give you the official story, okay? Which of course the story has to explain, has to add up to the accounts, right? They
okay.
were saying that the jets were flying under visual flight rules, which in aviation, I think visual flight means that you're flying with only visuals and you're not using instrumentation, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to go off of what you're seeing out of the cockpit. Okay.
So you're saying so they're saying that each light was a different craft?
Correct. That's what the claim is.
Wow, well, they put on a show because they were flying in such a great formation and in
Right.
one unit.
One unit
They were
that
able to
appeared to be one craft for an hour and a half.
so give these men and women an Oscar for their performance.
it doesn't.
Um,
It doesn't really sound correct, right? Doesn't sound like the answer, right?
it just sounds like a cop out. It sounds like just a cop out. It sounds like just
They tried to come up with an official explanation. But do you think they were covering up aliens? Was it an alien ship?
um
And have they come back? Why is it that we've seen this again?
the the thing, yeah, I'm just the thing that confuses me about that it being aliens is the aliens don't need spotlights. If they've traveled, light years to get here, why would they need bright lights like that? If they wanted to be hidden, they wouldn't even install those kind of lights to where humans could even detect them with their eyes. They want to be invisible. So they were either really primitive aliens, they're really primitive, or they wanted to be known and they wanted to be seen. So I want it to be some kind of life or some kind of ship, but my logical side is like, okay, if I was an alien, I want to be stealthy about this, especially if it's going to be a craft like this size. In America, people could just take pictures of me, you know?
Yeah. So I think we have to maybe draw some conclusions from it. If it was an extraterrestrial source, then we might think that are they observers is really what I'm getting at, because they come, they make their presence known, they leave, were they just observing us and letting, obviously lights is a signal, right? Letting
It might have been an experiment.
the
It could
lights
have
were
been,
not there
yeah.
to illuminate the terrain. The lights were there as a signal. Now, whether it's
Okay.
signaling us or whether it's signaling them, or their, you know, whatever
Yeah.
you think, it was a signal, but we don't know for what reason. What are your thoughts?
Like stuff like that, like it could be beings that we can't even imagine. So their intentions is something that we can't even fathom, you know? So if it's something that we can process, which is visual light, for their experiment, then so be it. They're gonna probably conduct an experiment like that. Um, if it was a huge craft, I don't know. I don't know why they would install lights on there.
There's just we don't have an explanation for that, and the list of things that we can come up with, I'm sure, are an exhausting list. There could be a numerous things, reasons why, um, but I guess that's fine. So we are dealing with a very mysterious thing. But I guess the question is, it comes down to: do you think that the the official story and what the government was saying was a cover up, right?
I
We
thought you
don't.
said that it was a jet. There were jets.
That was what they said. Oh, we know the answer now. That was the supposedly the explanation. I don't believe it, but I just go to that I don't know. Question mark. I don't know. I'm not saying for sure it was aliens.
Yeah. Um. Shoot.
You don't believe
Yeah.
the you don't the official story doesn't make sense to you. Period. Right.
Both stories don't make sense. So
Right.
the official story obviously doesn't make sense because it's always fabricated. But the other side is okay. The other side is obviously what is they're aliens. Okay. So then I go that route. If it's aliens, then obviously I keep going about the lights. The things are called the Phoenix Lights. They're all about the
Right.
lights that people saw. If I was, and that's me putting putting my mind in a space to where it shouldn't be because their mind is different. The alien mind might be different. But in
Right.
my mind, like, why would you have lights on your ship if you're really trying to be observers? Why are you gonna have light? Like, if you're bird watching, you go bird watching. Why would you have a neon suit on, watching
Okay.
bird lights, watching
Okay.
birds?
Okay. But if you're if
You
you're
wanna, yeah.
if you're bird watching, why are you wearing a Hawaiian shirt with Nikes? Because that's the person, right? It's not like they're trying to do something to the
But you don't
bird.
want to be seen. Like, you don't want
So
that
then,
bird to see you,
why
right?
isn't it that bird watchers? Why don't they wear camouflage, convincing camouflage? because they don't think the bird is paying any attention to what they're wearing.
The
You
bird
see?
can't fathom that pattern, but some smart birds might, see that,
Yes.
um but yeah, makes sense.
Does it open the mind and unlock a possibility? Is it fact or fiction?
I have
Okay.
no idea, but yeah, I wouldn't want a neon suit on if I was bird watching at night.
Right, right, right. So, okay, so let's I want to get into another subject because we're on the subject of these strange looking creatures that we get a image of from culture and comics and movies and all that stuff. I want to talk about the Anunnaki from Sumerian
Uh-huh.
mythology.
Okay.
Can you tell me
Hmm.
what do you know
All
about
right.
the
It's
Anunnaki?
um apparent supposedly there is a group of otherworldly entities that um intervened, or they interacted with early humans to, in a way where they manipulated their genetics to create a certain race or a certain mammal or something to work, to do work for them.
Okay.
And so this was the advent of agriculture. This is when humans got really good at farming and animal husbandry, and farming with animals.
Yes.
So this is supposedly where this is, in their story, the Anunnaki story. This is where this is all started. So there was, I don't know the there's three or four important like names in this whole story. I know one of them is Enki, Enki, and I guess this is like one of the main ones, like the main orchestrators or scientists behind this whole, you know, this whole story. So yeah, it's far out. It's basically, um, yeah, creation. It's a creation story. It's a creation myth that is in Sumerian, the early like early Sumerian cultures, one of the first cultures on Earth. Uh, so yeah, it's in their creation story.
So
These
this
Anunnaki people. Yeah.
so I mean it's interesting because I haven't touched on the Sumerian um, history for a long time, and I just going with the basics for myself and for people listening. You know, the Sumerians were basically which that is the Middle East area, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
And
in the Middle East, and they were probably one of the earliest people to have uh, like written language.
yes,
I think it's called cuneiform. It's like
cuneiform
tablet,
tablets.
yeah. So you get soft kind of rock-like material, clay, and you kind of etch inside of it. That's
Right.
the earliest writings. And to my knowledge, I'm not an expert in this, but it's one of the earliest writings.
So
Uh,
the equivalent of people more popularly know is like Egyptians and hieroglyphics, right? But we're
yeah,
dealing with a
it was like
different.
hieroglyphics and symbols.
We had
Yeah.
we had symbols, and they had what we have remaining from the history is we found jars. They're basically what amounts to stories or portraits on the walls, right? Like statues. Um, and then an interesting one is, well, there are tools like a dagger,
Hmm.
um, and things like that. But there's a structure, um, that is. Let me see. This is it was dedicated to the moon god. And my question
Hmm.
was, do you think that they thought that the aliens were gods, or do you think that they thought that there were aliens and there were gods?
Um, You mean
because they obviously believed in
you mean
multiple
early
gods.
man or these
Oh,
Sumerian people?
and
Like
yeah, I'm
I
talking about, well, I guess in that time period, right? Because
so in their whole creation story, there weren't even humans. Like they didn't have a mind to think that they were gods. They
right,
they were created by them. Um,
that's what they believed. Like was the history, right?
yeah, so they didn't even have a choice. They were just created to work in agriculture, to learn agriculture.
But my question is, those people that believe that they were created, did they think the gods were the creators, or did they think they were gods and the seeding? It was a seeding, right? It was a seed, or is that the wrong terminology? Is that the wrong? It
Yeah, it
wasn't
could
a
be
seed.
it could be a seed. It's more of like genetic manipulation
Genetic
in order to
manipulation.
create to create a working class. They
Okay.
were they I guess they didn't they considered themselves to be better, so they wanted to not work. They wanted to take advantage of all this space that they had,
Hmm.
and they weren't gonna work it. They weren't gonna work the fields and mine. I think they wanted to mine for gold. I think they wanted gold. I think gold was what they really want. I could be mixing up
No,
a
no, you're
different
right.
one.
You're on. You're on.
Yeah,
You're on. Yeah, you're correct.
they wanted as much gold as possible. Because apparently, now this is going way far out.
Yes.
Apparently, their atmosphere, something on their planet, they needed gold like badly, like for their planet to survive. It could have been their atmosphere. It could have been something, but they needed gold, and Earth was rich in it,
Mm-hmm.
and they created a working class. In Sumerian culture, they created a working class to work the fields. Uh, maybe yeah. So yeah.
So I'm reading the Wikipedia now, and I'm looking that they are referring to the Anunnaki as deities, which deities roughly or somehow translates into a god. Okay. Um,
Oh yeah.
and so, going more in depth in it, based on the information here, they talked about that there were gods in the heavens and there was a god in the underworld. And specifically, what it says is that the Anunnaki were the oldest generation of gods who have been overthrown and banished to the underworld by the younger gods, which is really
Hmm.
interesting
Yeah.
because it is believed that the Anunnaki were the ones that kind of like set things in motion and influenced everything, right? And then they believe that there were new gods that took over. They got power, and they banished the Anunnaki to the underworld, quote unquote.
Are these the Greek gods? What gods took over? Does it say?
So specific, yes, it does. It's
Okay.
specifically the gods. They're the gods in the underworld, which were known. Let me see what I believe to be. I'm gonna go with this one first, which is, I see that it actually goes into Greek mythology, but let me go with the gods of the heavens were known as the, how can you say this word? It's Igigi, the Igigi,
The Ajiji.
the Agigi, okay.
That's
The
I'm not sure if that's
Agigis
Greek. Is
were the,
that
no,
that's
no,
like
I don't.
Mesopotamian? What is that?
Yes, Mesopotamian.
Persian?
That's
Something?
correct.
Okay.
Mesopotamian. Okay. Uh,
Okay.
it was some interestingly, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the in one myth, the Gigi were the younger gods who were servants of the Anunnaki until they rebelled
Okay.
and were replaced by the creation of humans. Interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, totally forgot about that aspect. I knew about the main stuff, but I didn't even know about them. Yeah, I mean, that. that could be a parallel that a lot of religions have. Like there's a creation figure, then there's a certain figure that goes against the creation figure, and that creation and that whole adversary thing is a whole thing behind good and evil. Like the adversaries is the bad ones, the demons. So in this case, the Gigi are probably the demons, um, and the other ones are the deities, godlike figures.
I think this is yes. I think this is super interesting because they tried to translate what Ijiji means, and the rough translate or the translation. One of the translations, one of them was a mathematical translation, which stood for all of the gods, which makes sense. The other translation, in the Sumerian language, could be translated into it is a how do you say, an interpretation. Eyes in the sky, the watchers, the ones who deflower.
So maybe it was a group of, you know, uh, extraterrestrial beings that they're probably equal as in their biology, but they were a different company. Like
Yes.
they're different
Yeah, different
company,
faction.
and
Yes. Right.
and one company did this. Oh my god! Like you made, wait, you did what? Like you made beings? Like how
Right.
could you? Like what are you
Right.
doing? And then the other side, the Anunnaki are like, bro, like we made you workers. And then they
Yes.
probably had a big conflict in space and probably had a big battle in space, and one won over the other and got banished from the earth, and maybe they're fighting that battle still today, and so we're not allowed to know about it because we're just the things that got created,
Yes.
we're just the yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I think that does can make sense. Another faction, same biological creature or being, but different. They had different. Whether it be, their we don't know if it's a political, or if it's a power, shift, or if it's just different opinions. We don't know if they're all equal or if they're different. How did you say, hierarchy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
uh
I did want
but
to look.
yeah.
I did want to look into the carvings of the Anunnaki, and like basically the depictions, right? And talk about that for a little bit.
Okay.
Um, I guess, let me see if this, like, what are they depicted as basically, or what's the how would you say it, the mythology of it, right? That's what it comes down to. Um, it's pretty complicated for sure.
You're talking about the imagery.
Yeah, I want to know, like, what was the imagery depicting? Like, why? What were they trying to say about the
Mm-hmm.
Anunnaki? Because that's
uh
something that is open in interpretation. I think
it
if
would
you
be helpful if they had their own like form of imagery for themselves, but as humans we can only uh, uh, we can only attribute certain things at a certain time that our brains can process. So i think what I think what people might find if they look up images is bearded, nobility, like people
okay,
that have luscious hair and big beards, big
right?
hats, and
You're
they're usually
saying,
bigger than everybody else
right?
on the whatever it is.
That's what they
uh
were, how they were representing the idea of these beings. Is what you kind of were saying. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, I think they even have wings. um
Okay.
but of course in those times wings can mean anything that they saw in the sky, or anything that wouldn't have legs. Like you need wings to do this. Like Like
Like,
these
for
people need
example,
wings, so we're gonna give them wings on our picture. Or
for
they're so full of themselves they gave themselves wings. But I
right,
don't know.
right, okay, yeah. So, do you think that they saw advanced things, and I mean that they envisioned these advanced things, or this nobility idea, or again, the deity side of things, where they thought they were gods? But I'm reminded of trying to think, like, anyway, it's a story. It's a story. Like, how do you think the story modified over time? I mean, how accurate do you think, or do you think it was just completely so wrong from the origin by the time they wrote down the stories? You know what I'm asking?
Um, yeah, so like I said before, they can only imagine certain things. You know, they can only
Yeah.
think of certain things.
They
So if
couldn't imagine a
someone
lot.
is
There was a lot they couldn't
is
imagine.
yeah, if somebody in a I don't know in a spacesuit or something crashes down in front of these people, they're they're gonna think, okay, first of all, who is this? Where did he come from? And oh my God, he came from the sky, which means he must have wings. And so it
Right.
could be somebody just in a jetpack, just landing right in front of them. And to them, they're like, oh my goodness, look what just landed in front of us. Like let's be afraid, or let's cooperate. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely possible because that makes me think of there. I think I saw this. It was like a documentary of this, like this uncontacted tribe. You know, the uncontacted tribes in these like tropical areas,
Yes.
in like the Amazon. They haven't seen any technology, so so the documentary talks about like this plane that flies by them, and so ever since they saw that plane, they would make they'll try to make a replica of it, or they would try to be like, oh my, like the gods are finally here, this is what they look like, and so but they were just looking at an airplane,
Yes, but they were
it's just an airplane, but
trying to interpret it,
yeah, they're trying to interpret it,
trying to replicate it.
they're trying to understand it, and to
They're,
them it
they
was
were
their
trying
god,
to
like
make it
yeah, it was
a real thing to them, which
yeah.
they never really knew
I think they
before
went as
then.
far as to try to bring them back. They're trying to bring them back by creating these monuments, which is made out of like, I think it was made out of like wood, and they tried to replicate the airplane as they saw it.
Right.
And that happened throughout this has happened throughout the the colonization era of when the Spanish came to colonize South America. These were fair-skinned people, and they would try to act as gods, like, because I mean they came in on these ships with guns, these huge ships. When obviously it was their colonial, just ships, normal ships, but to the indigenous people they were otherworldly, ships, things like that.
Yes. Yes.
So they saw them in their armor, their iron armor, and they were like, "Oh my God, the gods!" And so some of the conquistadors, they loved it. They were like, they latched onto it, and they acted. They're like, "Yeah, like actually, yeah, I am your god, and we need all your women, and we need all the grain."
Took advantage
And
of it, huh?
yeah, we need all the grain and all the gold, and they gave it to
Okay.
them. So I think the same thing might have happened in the Sumerian culture,
Yes.
but not with humans. It's probably with another kind of being. It could have been primitive. It could have been
Being
primitive extraterrestrials, like
they came
them, like
along.
extraterrestrials. Yeah, they're way advanced from us now, but they're primitive back then.
So you think that they may have taken advantage of the situation by, oh, if they think we're so great and we're godlike, then let's just get everything that we want out of it. Is that pretty much the
Um,
idea?
yeah. That's probably happened throughout the cultures, but in specifically the Sumerian culture is kind of muddy because in that culture the humans were created by them. They weren't. They're visited and convinced that they were gods. You know,
Yeah.
so it could be a little bit of both. It could have been so diluted to where it became a creation myth when it was really something else.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I don't know about that. Hmm. It's very interesting to talk about though.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanna let's see. I think we pretty much. I don't know. Like this doesn't really fit anywhere in terms of the topic of discussion. Like I just have like the last couple of ideas. Like I want to ask you this to see what you like as a what do you call it, a association, or what do you see in this picture? You know when you hold a black blob up to someone, what is that
Like an
called?
ink blot,
Ink blot test.
a
Sounds like ink
Rorschach
blot.
test.
Yeah, a Rorschach test. Yes. What, like, when you hear the word or the term, which I don't even want to say it in the entirety in a string, but I can tell it to you and you can understand it. So, when you have operations that involve something like a flag, but the events that happen, the people that are involved, it gets false, right?
Oh, okay.
You understand what the word
Yes.
is, what the term
Okay.
is. So what do you think
Okay.
about like when you hear that term?
Oh man, that like it makes me think, like, oh man, it makes me think about a lot of events that have happened.
Right, that people have
Um,
claimed are that, right?
oh, definitely.
There's been claims.
How?
There have been a lot of claims. In fact, it gets claimed pretty commonly, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of situations in history that I could mention. I don't really know if you want to get into them, but yeah,
I
I
just
know it
I,
was
I just want to talk
some.
about, like, what I really want to talk about is like what do we think is the most likely to be if you have an event that is so that you feel that have a lot high confidence, if that makes sense.
Um, Yeah, I know that, we've been talking about this whole control system thing. Um, it's just another perk. It's another perk that they have in their arsenal.
Perk, huh? That's an
Um,
interesting word
yeah.
that you chose.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They have ghost. They have the ghost perk, definitely.
Uh-huh.
And this is another perk that might be in their arsenal.
So they have an
Been
ability.
able to, yeah.
So they have something
Oh
they can
well.
use.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So like
If something's not going the right way, things need to happen
they can use it.
in order for it to go the right way. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you think that there has been execution of that, like in the past? I mean, it sounds like,
Definitely.
it's
Oh yeah.
definitely it has happened, and it's
Yeah.
only like, and like you said, when they need to use it, they use it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Is there any particular incident any particular thing that stands out to you? In
Um.
any kind of, modern recent doesn't really, from the last, what, 60 years or whatever, 80 years,
You said okay.
like in recent times. We don't have to
Now,
go.
yeah, my memory of this is fading about it, but I know there was words about Pearl Harbor being something of that effect.
Interesting.
In order for the U.S. to be more involved in the wars that were going on. I mean, this was a terrible tragedy that happened. A lot of people died. Um, but something about it was a little fishy. All the
Like,
details escaped me. It was it was
sure.
many years ago when
But like, do you
this
remember
came into my conscious.
what didn't sound right about it? Like, what made you question it?
I think it was like the legislation leading up to it, or
Okay.
um, it just it was it was the timing was too right, and
Of
those are other
course.
factors that escaped me too. But
I
the
think.
timing of it, the repercussions, everything that happened after that.
Right. It was too perfect. There were things that happened. I remember. I mean, it basically was one of those things like.
You know, people were put in camps because of this. You know, Japanese people were put in camps in America because this happened, because they were
Yeah.
so afraid of the threat from
Yeah.
this event.
I'm reminded of the stories and the how would you say it, the declassification of information. There were stories and information. There were things about the story that we didn't know about until recent times in terms of widespread public, you know, being available to the average person. We knew the official story. We knew what they taught in history. We knew what was on the broadcast and all that stuff, and we knew about all that. But we didn't know about how things transpired exactly, how things happened internally. I remember finding that out much pretty recently, which is in the past 10 years maybe. Is that accurate? Let me see. I think I would say about 10 years ago, plus or minus, in that time period. Which, as you know, that's really recent. I mean, by
Yeah,
that time,
yeah,
that's ancient history at that time. Quote unquote. Pearl Harbor was ancient history, so it didn't really matter if this information was got out or not. And it was like people just wanted to know and wanted questions answered and more information. So I think that was what I was kind of talking about when you talk about things that you don't really know the whole picture, you're not really seeing the whole thing, and I definitely know that that has been the case over and over again. We don't necessarily know all the things that happened, and
yeah.
there are mysteries as well that haven't been answered. But that's a good one that you. I think that's just a good thing to know. Pearl Harbor. That's a good one. Any other things you can think about?
I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go into it. Um,
Well, if you have anything that you can think of that you want to
you know,
mention, just as examples, really more about examples, because I think there's been modern things that you know as we know more about it, we become more confident in to realize that there was manipulation in it,
yeah, but
right?
there's also like a sensitivity aspect because of
Yes.
it. Because okay, the event I'm talking about
Right.
is Sandy Hook. You know, the Sandy Hook shooting.
Okay. Okay. Well, we know
So I,
there was strange stuff with that. If you just look at the information,
oh
if
yeah,
you research
yeah,
it,
definitely.
this strange stuff. I'm glad you mentioned that, um, because I remember odd stuff, man. Like weird stuff. Like I remember
Yeah, like the
imagery.
parents.
I
Yeah, the
remember.
parents. The eerie thing for me was about the parents. Like some of the interviews weren't right, or the information was wrong, or yeah, and it was uh yeah, it's a lot of strange
It
things.
seemed something seemed off about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something still seems off about it, and I don't know the whole picture of that. But I was like, well, thankfully, I'm not involved in that. My family's not involved in that, so it is for me external. It's something that, but I think we're kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I would say like I'm a believer of truth. We want to know what the actual story is. We don't want to know bullshit, and we don't want any more muddying of our history than already is out there. I want to know what the
Right.
hell is going on and what, and if somebody acted improper or tried to change the story, then that should be known, and that's that's just seeking truth. It's not trying to say, "Oh, well, we need to get down to what organizations or what individuals."
Mm,
No,
yeah.
I want to know if there were, something's not right.
A lot of these events that occur, these events, um, they occur because there has to
their narrative needs to play out,
Yeah.
and that's how they start it by trauma. It's usually by trauma, uh, on a nationwide scale, in order for the whole pot to start brewing. Now, since that happened, a lot of talks about gun control, and then all of a sudden it spirals into another thing, and now we're here at that point still, still talking about it.
Okay. That's going to lead us into our next topic, which is related. I want to talk about the actual United States military. They in recent times they've done, you can call it whatever you want, mobilized. They've done drills. They've gone to cities. We're doing exercises. I've heard the term, and I'm familiar with the term readiness.
Readiness testing, readiness drills.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to put those words together, but yeah, readiness tests. If when you know about military stuff, when you're just an enthusiast like I am, you know that this stuff, there's stuff that happens in peacetime. There's stuff that happens in, on bases and in enemy territory. But how do you know about the military stuff that's been happening in American cities within the last year?
The last year, no.
Yeah, very recent.
Nope.
Um so let me open the book on this, huh? So, as you know, we're in a time of cameras, and everybody's recording everything and taking pictures of everything, right? So,
Okay. Yeah.
things happened, and I remember seeing videos and pictures. I believe we're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, let me see. Let me just confirm the dates on this, okay? Hang on a second. This is old. This is old. This is one thing that I didn't have prepared. In recent times, I think they were they were moving, like, basically troops and armor. There were helicopters involved. They were doing drills. Now, this kind of stuff, usually, like, they announce it, right? And, like, the military can do whatever it wants because it has authority in a way where, hey, we need permission to use this field so we can test our stuff and make sure our military is ready and knows how to conduct operations and stuff. That's normal enough, right?
Right.
They'll let
do you
us
know where this happened?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have. I can't even find the information. Which. Why can't I find the information? I'm trying. I want to pull this up because
Okay.
I hate to have a long pause in our podcast here while I look this up. But
Oh, that's fine. So the the topic was within the last
last
couple of
year
years.
or two, yeah, within the last couple of years.
There was tests done. Now, was this
So, like, let me give you an example. All right. China famously did military exercises on a building that was exactly a replica of a building in Taiwan where, like, the president is in. They were doing exercises, quote unquote, where they would drop in the troops. They would machine gun their way, storm it, bust the doors in, breach it, clear it, and arrest everybody. Right?
Uh-huh.
Like, that was a message to Taiwan. That was not just a military. You didn't know about that?
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they had an exact replica of like the White House equivalent of Taiwan's government. Okay, it's the White House. It would be like if they did an military exercise on a thing that was a replica of the White House. Okay.
Okay, that's a big deal.
So that was a big deal. But that's not what I'm really talking about here. But it's just to give you an idea of. And I don't even think this is a message. Well, maybe it's a message. I'm talking about it. I darn it if I don't have the information though, man.
It sounds like a message, and it sounds like a lot of these things that these militaries do is something to prepare them for an event or some kind of thing that will affect them nationally, and there could be a lot of things brewing up that certain militaries are doing that they just don't want the public to know. I've seen a lot of different things about body bags being collected, being produced in a massive scale and things like that. So there's lots of fishy things I think are going on. It could be to send a message, or there's just to prepare for things to come.
Yeah, but I think that was kind of the thing is like, were they trying to send a message, and to who, and were they preparing, and what were they preparing for? That's kind of what it comes down to. I could see some information here, but pretty much, like, here's what I think was happening. I'm sorry I don't have this information in front of me, but basically like I said, they put soldiers, and they put military vehicles. I forget if it was. I know there were helicopters involved, but I don't remember if it was tanks or APCs or combination, some kind of heavy equipment in there, and they were basically conducting drills, operations, readiness tests in public without giving the citizens notice. You don't really know about it, but I think a lot of people don't know about it. That's kind of why I'm bringing it up. This is happening, and it doesn't usually happen like that. So,
not in the Western culture. I mean, not like out in the open to where. I mean,
right.
Who knows? It could happen. It could have very well happened already, and we haven't noticed it. Or put two and two together. But
you expect that to happen in like another type of country, right? Where the military can operate in public normally, right? For example, in Cuba, they have soldiers with machine guns stationed on the street, and that's their police. That's normal for them. If you were to walk outside and see a U.S. Army private with an AR, standing there at the ready in the corner, and then like if he saw somebody steal or something, well, you'd be freaked out, wouldn't you?
You'd be concerned that there's an armed man. Yeah.
Well, he's in military fatigues and it says U.S. Army on it. Why, what do you? So that's the thing is like, I'm not trying to say they're not trying to be official about it. It's just not. It stands out to you, and you would be concerned about it. So you might call your local police, and the police might say, "Yeah, the Army's stationed there. Have a good day." They're not going to do anything. So, but that's the norm in other countries, but not in the United States. That's my point. But I think this happened, and it raised an alarm to me. Don't you think that's concerning?
So this was Taiwan?
No, United States. It happened here.
Okay. I don't know who was replicating what.
They weren't replicating anything. This is the military doing drills in a U.S. city without notifying anyone.
Okay. Um.
That's what we're talking about right now. And
Yeah.
the U.S. Army's there to serve the country, so I don't have a problem, putting this information out there. I don't care if they're trying to keep it secret or not. They're not trying to keep it secret. They didn't want press. None of the press covered it. So, but yet you have footage of it from people. You know. So
Right.
it wasn't official where the army came out and said, "Hey, we're doing these drills. We did these drills." They don't even, after the fact, they didn't even say we did this and our military is ready to operate to you.
I mean,
For
yeah,
you.
it's hard for me to speak on things like that because there could be so many layers behind why something is done. It could be a facade for something else that happened somewhere else in another state that was a major thing, a major deal, or something else happened to cover it. Like there,
All right.
it could be many layers to why you know things like that occur,
Okay.
especially out in the open.
What if they did a military exercise in the place that you live? What would you think?
Depends on what it is. It depends on what it
Helicopters
is.
flying over, gunshots going off, APC rolling through your street, soldiers running. That.
Okay, that would be cause for concern, and I would want to know what who was fighting, especially on U.S. soil, and why is the military involved.
Right. So you would think it was an attack that was happening?
I would think that, yeah, something serious to where the military had to let loose their iron and start firing. Then yeah, I think it would be cause for concern. An attack, I mean, possibly.
That's how outrageous it
I would,
is to just
yeah,
all of a sudden conduct an operation with the military in residential and commercial area. I mean, it's really outlandish. You almost don't think it's real. So I don't know. We
yeah.
have to do more research on that to be fully armed with information. But it sounds
It could
pretty
be
unreal.
something. It could be something that we can't even imagine. Like they're probably shooting at something that was invisible, like something that we can't even think of. Like it just had to be. It had to be covered up as a drill.
Could
It
it have
could be.
been otherworldly origins?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they could have been shooting at creatures. Yeah.
So they could have been conducting a operation for a purpose of to deal with something that may not have been normal.
Yeah, possibly the military had to be called in to defend the
Isn't
nation.
that the most the most common cover-up story? Oh, it's just a drill. It's just a practice. Don't worry. Right?
It's too often. That's why it's suspicious. That's why you can't even have a drill without raising suspicion because it's been used so much.
They still use it. They don't even care that it's suspicious. They don't even realize. They think it's a good cover. So, anyway.
And yeah, in order for me to continue talking about it, I would have to know like where this is. If this like a UFO hotspot, or is this like an area that is of interest to, I don't know, extraterrestrials. I don't know. I have no idea.
I
This
think
is an important base somewhere.
I think if for the legitimacy side of this, what we're talking about, if you just look up on the internet military operations that have happened on U.S. soil and mysterious circumstances or under the cover of being an exercise, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. And so there's just facts. They're just stuff that has happened, and and there's even the admittance, or there's a paper trail, because they basically admit to it, saying, oh yeah, we did this and that, and they don't necessarily comment on it, but I think there's some of the stuff they can't get around, because it comes down to, you have to have a paper trail because of the cost of conducting operations, right? So they can't get around saying that, it's not going to run for free. They have to get their budget. Mm-hmm. So that's where they get, a little bit exposed. But that doesn't make it, obviously doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, they have to pay so and so to operate a vehicle worth this much amount of money.
Exactly.
They have to pay so and so to be quiet, or they have to train so and so to be quiet about you operating this vehicle worth such and such amount of money.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, so I think that's good for our podcast. We've covered a lot of good stuff. And
yes, indeed. All the viewers, I hope we haven't scared you, or I don't know. But yeah, it's a lot of interesting topics that may seem out of this world, or different than what you usually hear in podcasts. But I'm glad to be a part of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's. Like I've said before, there's just a lot of mysteries. There's stuff that is not explained or cannot be explained. We still are searching for other life out there in the universe. So we don't know if that's something that will become common knowledge to people about,
there's just a layer of information that we are allowed to know, and that's the whole kind of point that I think is what we're talking about. There's a whole layer of information that, like I said, is supposed to be under wraps, or supposed to be only a certain amount of people are supposed to know this.
Yeah,
for the betterment of humanity, because this information comes out, then it'll create a ripple, little snowball effect, and so you multiply that by all these different categories in existence, and that's where you get the weird and mysterious section of life.
I'm reminded of that story, that movie, that where the guy is, he's puts out a publication and he talks about all these different things over and over. He talks about different stuff, what if this, or what if that, or maybe this happened or that happened, and then they finally come and they grab him, and they they try to find out what he knows and stuff like that, and then he basically says, well, which story was right? Which one did I get right?
Yeah, there's so many of them. One of them
hit, right. And then they finally. So I thought that was really funny, because does not sound like it could be a true story. So great writing.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for being my guest, and letting us hear all of your insight, knowledge, and your experiences.
Thanks for having me. I'm by no means an expert in any of these fields, but I definitely feel that my opinions, I want to get them out there. So, it's an interesting platform to lay them down on, but I'm glad to be a part of it, like I said. But
yeah. So that's it for this very special edition of the podcast. We will be seeing what we discuss in the future in terms of this kinds of stuff. We'll see. We want to see the feedback. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, and like our stuff.
Oh yeah, please do that. Yeah, do all that. Like everything.
Are there any socials that you want to give out? If anybody wants to look into you, you're kind of like a ghost. Nobody can really.
I'm under the radar.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I don't like to have. I took my picture off of Facebook.
Right.
took my name off of. I'm ready to.
I'm surprised
be
you
under the
signed
radar.
up for Facebook.
Yeah,
They
I'm
really
almost
got
done
you
with
on
it.
that one.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I don't have any plugs. I like to maintain, my mysteriousness. Um, but
That's fine.
yeah, not yet.
That's good. No, that's good. Okay, so that's it. We're gonna wrap up here. Play our outro music. Hope you enjoy that, and we'll be back with another podcast and another subject next time. And if Apollo is able to, I'd like to have him on the podcast. Just as he's based to me. He's like a co host. That's a good way of putting it.
Right.
So if he would like to just chill on the podcast with me, then it'd make me happy. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, for sure. Let's see what happens. Let's continue to, bring people, knowledge and information. At the same time, making hopefully getting a good laugh in here and there. But yeah,
enjoy that. I hope you enjoy that. And we want to control the horizontal and the vertical a little bit here. So, that's just
Right.
we want to have a platform to talk about our ideas, in other words, and what and possibilities, and not be limited by what the mainstream ideas are, because sometimes it's good to get the brain thinking about things, open your world to the possibilities.
Oh yeah. We need to marinate our culture with more than TikToks. We need
Yeah.
to be a little bit diversify our mental capabilities and about subjects that that influence our lives.
Like me and my friend, I remember we liked to watch that Men in Black movie, because we were like, whoa, this is like really, what if there are aliens living among us, and this is the real world, they're just there and you don't know about it. So it just opened your mind, right? And and cinema is great at that. So okay, well, that's it for this podcast. Say goodbye.
All right, see ya. Thanks for tuning in, y'all.
That's all, folks.